Let's start tonight, though, with the growing controversy surrounding RCMP Commissioner Brenda Lucki and the federal government. This is all about the 2020 mass shooting in Nova Scotia. Lucki is accused by current and former local RCMP members of trying to get them to reveal what weapons were used in the shooting because, according to them, she had promised a minister and the Prime Minister's office she would, tying it all to upcoming gun control legislation. The then Minister of Public Safety, Bill Blair, denies any wrongdoing.
My job as the Minister of Public Safety was to ensure that information on behalf of the Government of Canada was gathered with respect to the police response. But I know very clearly the line between government responsibility for governance and oversight of the RCMP and giving direction in any way, and at no time did I cross that line, or any member of my government cross that line in giving direction to the Commissioner of the RCMP.
Now, the Commissioner of the RCMP, Brenda Lucki, has also released a new statement today that reads in part, "I know there are questions about political interference. There was certainly a need for an exchange of timely and accurate information with the Government of Canada, and I endeavored to do that. However, I want to re-emphasize that I did in no way seek to interfere in the ongoing investigation, nor did I feel any political pressure to do so. I will be providing sworn testimony," the statement goes on to say, "to the Mass Casualty Commission in the coming weeks and appearing before a parliamentary committee on these matters." For more reaction to all of this, I'm joined now by former Deputy Commissioner of the RCMP, Pierre-Yves Bourduas. Mr. Bourduas is here in Ottawa. Hi there. Good to see you again. Thank you for making the time.
Good afternoon, Vashi.
We've got today, overnight really, a new allegation of political interference from a second person involved in the RCMP or who would have been present in these conversations. She's now no longer in her position, but nevertheless, a second person to add to the sort of accounting of this from Superintendent Darren Campbell last week. You spent years in the RCMP. How big of a deal are these allegations?
Well, it's touchy because you have two credible individuals that have basically explain their own perception of what the commissioners indicated in their conversation on April 28, 2020. However, it's also very disturbing to realize that the commissioner has used, and the commissioner recognized that she might have used the wrong language in order to convey her message, but the message was clearly received as a nudge towards revealing the make of the weapons used in this tragedy that affected Nova Scotian and Canadian writ large. So I personally, because I was in the position of Deputy Commissioner for a 3-year period, I've also experienced some type of political interference at times when you brief ministers and elected officials, but my role at the time was to ostensibly educate these elected officials, just to explain to them the fine line between explaining a police response and them guiding the police towards operational response. So again, it's a question of education. And when I hear the current minister of Minister Blair, it's quite obvious that the minister, having been the chief of police for 10 years in Toronto, knows that to never cross this particular line. So therefore, there's a lot of questions floating.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the testimony of both the minister and the commissioner in front of parliamentary commission and also the Commission of Mass Casualties.
Yeah, we're anticipating later this month to hear from them, as you said, in that inquiry that's taking place right now in Nova Scotia into the investigation, into the shooting itself, and then also a parliamentary committee that will study this particular kind of political controversy. I'd like you, if you could, I'd like to ask just for you to expand a little bit when you say you've had experiences where you can envision what political pressure looks like. Because in this situation, I just want to make it clear for our viewers that what's being alleged is basically there was gun control legislation that was coming up, that the government was going to introduce. And they wanted the RCMP in Nova Scotia to reveal which weapons were used to the public. And according to these allegations, there was sort of like a tie-in to the gun control legislation. That's what these RCMP officers are saying was conveyed to them through Brenda Lucki, through Commissioner Lucki. Yet, as you heard the minister say, they're saying they didn't do anything undue. They didn't give direction. They didn't unduly pressure. Those are the ways in which they're characterizing it. When you hear that back and forth, like, what comes to mind based on your own experience?
Well, I'm looking at, for instance, the credential of Superintendent Darren Campbell. He is a seasoned investigator. He was responsible for a fair chunk of this particular investigation. And when you're an investigator, your first nature is to make copious notes about conversations because, of course, you could be challenged in court. And therefore, when Superintendent Campbell indicates in his notes that were made public that he felt this undue pressure coming from the commissioner's office, then it raised valid questions in relation to the message and the tone of the message used by the current commissioner with these investigators that you have to bear in mind 10 days after this tragedy were obviously still overwhelmed with operational requirements and in ongoing investigations. So therefore, it stands to reason that both Superintendent Campbell and Leah Scanlon, who is the former Director of Strategic Communication for the RCMP, felt this undue pressure. And of course, it raised a number of valid questions that needs to be answered by both the Commissioner and the Minister.
Are you surprised? I mean, I should be clear. The commissioner says that she was not, trying to direct them to do one thing or the other. That's her statement on it. She regrets the way in which the meeting unfolded, basically, because there have been some comments from those notes around the sort of tense nature of it and the way in which she made those officers feel. Are you surprised? I guess, or what is your view on kind of her role right now? And I think I'll play for you. I think we do have a clip from Minister Mendocino, the current Minister of Public Safety, sort of around the level of confidence in Brenda Lucki, and I just want to get your reaction.
On the easiest of days, being the Commissioner of the RCMP is tough. It's a big job. I know that the Commissioner works every day to work with her leadership team as well as rank and file RCMP members. No doubt, every time there is a report about police officers being harmed by guns or being killed by guns, it's a difficult day.
Do you think Brenda Lucki's job is to some degree in jeopardy right now?
Well, I'm not going to comment on this as political wrangling around her jobs or not. What I can safely say, though, from past experiences, I had to manage some serious files, and the calls I would get from the commissioner's office was ostensibly one question: how can we help? And because I remember vividly, in a particular instance, I had to turn to the commissioner in order to get things moving in the right direction so we can have a successful conclusion to an ongoing investigation. Obviously, that was not the case, and I'm looking forward to hear what the commissioner and what the minister will have to say in relation to this particular situation that is ostensibly deplorable, purely from a former RCMP officer.
And what makes it deplorable to you?
The fact that you have investigators that were managing the largest mass casualty in Canadian history, and the fact that these officers that were already overwhelmed had to manage what they perceived as being political interference in an ongoing, very serious investigations. Okay, Mr. Bourduas, I'll leave it there. Thanks for your insights, as always. Appreciate it. My pleasure, Vashi. Good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.